This is the 2022 Ford Bronco Wildtrak, and this thing is absolutely beautiful. We've got our black exterior. This specific one is also the Lux Package, which means it's got a ton of stuff on the inside. 360 camera, front and rear sensing system, and because it's the Wildtrak, that means it also has the Sasquatch Package, which means we've got this beefy 35-inch wheel on these beadlock capable 17-inch rims. We'll get to the breakdown there in just a second, but before we get started, I want to give Formula Ford a huge shout out for giving me access to this thing to shoot the video for you today. Check down below for their contact details. And this is going to be a pretty in-depth look looking at this vehicle. So let's unpack it and figure out what the Bronco it has to offer. There are a few small changes from the 21 versus the 2022 Ford Bronco. Not a ton of them though. We've got a few color changes and then a few changes in packaged options and things like that. There are a few other things like with the Sync4 screen and our dials and things like that, but those are some smaller changes we'll get to on the inside. But overall styling inside of this thing is great. We do have our LED headlamps there, LED tail lamps, and a few other things. Now, this specific one is just the regular front bumper, but the modular bumper is available there as an option, as is the hardtop, which is what we're looking at this specific one. Now, it is a little bit more challenging to get the hardtop right now. There are some aftermarket solutions that people have come up with. They're a tiny bit pricey, but at the same time, if you want a hardtop, there are options that are available out there, whether you go from the factory or just do something aftermarket instead. Now, I did mention this specific one is the Wildtrak, which means that we've got the Sasquatch package. That's why we've got these beefy 35-inch wheels here. These things are absolute monsters. Now, they are also beadlock capable rims. So this specific one doesn't have the beadlock system installed, but it is available as an aftermarket option or directly through either a Ford dealer or there's some aftermarket suppliers. One of the great things about that beadlock system is that it decreases the likelihood of the wheel and the rim separating, so the tire and the rim separating. Specifically when it's deflated, because if you're doing any sort of aggressive off-roading, you're typically going to want to deflate the tires a little bit. So those beadlock capable wheels, what that means is that the likelihood of it slipping off is pretty much non-existent. So if you do need to deflate your tires in order to go over more rocks and rugged terrain and things like that, just knowing that you're protected there. But I do love the look and style. Inside of the Bronco, we have a series of different options for the rim, and then a few options for the shocks themselves. So shocks and even some things you can't see underneath the vehicle. It's got the trail turn assist and a number of amazing features, including some monotube shocks, which is going to help with our overall ride and performance. So useful, big time, especially if you're the type of person where you need to go off-road and off-roading is your intended purpose for your Bronco. If that's the case, you could look at just the Sasquatch package by itself, but the Wildtrak is a beast by itself. The front end of the Bronco is amazing. I think Ford did a great job with this thing. We've got our Bronco lettering just right along the front, inside of the middle of the grille. And because of the packages this one has, it's also got a front-facing camera. So front-facing camera, side view mounted cameras, and our rear camera. So we've got our full 360-degree view, which is amazing. This thing also does have that forward sensing system. We've got our fog lamps there, as well as 2 front tow hooks. Now, I did mention we have the option for that modular bumper instead of this one. So if you are going to be going over more rugged terrain, you know you're going to need to pull parts of the bumper off. That's where you're going. But these things are plastic, and it's kind of neat. They're plastic, but they're all kind of like pieced together. So if something cracks, it looks like you might be able to replace a few small pieces if you can find the components, because it is a little bit challenging tracking these things down right now, especially with the shortages the way they are. All right, so the Bronco does technically have 2 available engine choices, but the Wildtrak only has 1, and that's the 2.7 liter engine that we're looking at here. But this thing looks amazing. It doesn't have any sort of engine cover, but just the way that this shield sits, it does cover off and it does quiet the engine down quite a little bit. But easy access to a few things, so we can easily top up fluids along the very top side. Easy access to the battery in case we need to give people a jump. And then we've also got easy-ish access if we need to change our checker oil ourselves. So overall, this thing is fairly nice. It's Ford's 2.7 liter EcoBoost engine that we're going to find inside of a number of other Ford and Lincoln vehicles. Like I said, we do have the option for other engine choices, just depending on the version of the vehicle that we're in. But because we're in the Wildtrak, strictly available with this 2.7 liter engine, which pushes out a ton of power, which is always a nice thing. All right, taking a peek along our driver's side door. So along the door itself at the very top, we do have our unlock and our lock button. our handle and then our base lock. We've got our another handle, and then we also do have a little storage area along the left-hand side there. Moving inside, we do also have our little assist handle. Down from that, just to the left-hand side of the steering wheel, series of other options that are available. So we can turn on our zone lighting on the outside, so on the side view mirrors. We can adjust what's going on with our lights. I always just recommend keeping it in the auto mode. We can also turn our fogs on or off. We can increase or decrease the brightness of the cluster screen. We can pull for our parking brake. And then we've also got our hood release a little bit further down from that. So getting underneath the hood, we're just going to give that a pull in order to get underneath. First impressions of the interior of this thing, absolutely love it. It looks incredible. We've got a few different options for the seat, and even looking across the entire Bronco lineup, cloth seat versus leather seat, just depending on the version of the vehicle you're in and the packages that you've got. But this specific one is the Lux package, like I mentioned, so we do have power seats for the driver passenger side, and it is super comfortable. The seat, you can go forwards, backwards with it, up and down, using the toggles along the left side of the seat. But with the seat all the way down as far as it'll go, like this is ridiculous. Like I've got, what's that, almost 6 inches, over 6 inches of headspace here. Now this specific one up overhead is the sound deadening one. So it's sound deadening headliner because it's the hard liner. So we've got the option for either this hard one, which is a little bit challenging to get right now, or you've got the soft top. Now there are some people that have done some aftermarket roofs as well, so carbon fiber, whatever the case may be, fiberglass, but the downside is the cost of it. It is a little bit pricey. So if you want a hard top, get it from the time of ordering at the factory. But the downside of that though is that they're going to take a little bit to get here. Like you're probably 6 months out before you look at a hard top. Some of them are even getting pushed to the 2023 models instead. So just knowing going in, if you want the hard top in your Bronco, you might have to wait a teeny little bit in order to get it. But this is just going to be a basic look at the steering wheel, the cluster screen, the media screen, etc. If you're looking for some more in-depth looks at all of this stuff and how the technology works, check down below because I've already put together some comprehensive videos on how all of this stuff works. But let's look at some of the basics. We've got some grab handles, so left side versus right side there. So if things get a little bit crazy, you got some places to hold on to. And we do also have, so along the center stack, our little grab handle there. But we do have some nice highlights along the door, which kind of wraps across the entire dash, and even the lower part of the dash underneath the media screen. So it does look fairly nice, and plastic look, but it kind of looks fairly nice. It's got this like weave type of texture to it, which is kind of an interesting thing. Now the steering wheel itself is amazing. It's going to be a manual adjust and it's telescoping. So just by our left knee, we've got a little lever there. We can adjust as necessary. Click that bad boy in order to lock it up into place. We do have front and rear windshield wipers on this thing. We can control that just using the stick along the left-hand side there. No stick on the right-hand side inside of the Bronco whatsoever. And then we do also have a series of other options. So this specific one has one of the added packages, which gives us the adaptive cruise control. So that Lux package gives us the adaptive cruise system. So it's your set it and forget it cruise control. I love the adaptive cruise system. If you've never driven with it before, if your car has it, use it. It's such an amazing system. Set it and forget it cruise. It's definitely useful if you're a little bit of a lead foot, because let's say you set it to $120 on the highway. If the car in front of you slows down, yours will automatically brake. If they pick up speed, get out of the way, it'll automatically pick you up to your set speed again. So it's like a little bit of a psychological play, which is kind of neat. But series of options that are available. So we can increase, decrease the volume using the steering wheel there, or we can adjust it directly through the screen there. So just underneath, we can adjust as necessary. On the right-hand side of that steering wheel, we can either answer or hang up on a phone call. We've got a voice command prompt, which is kind of neat because we can do things like change the station. 97.7. There we go. So it's changed the station out there. Let's do a quick audio test. Amazing song, amazing band, amazing sound at the same time, because this one, because of the package we're in, has the upgraded Bang & Olufsen sound system, which, as you heard, I wasn't even full blast, and that was just unbelievable. Now, there are a few things with the audio we'll get to in a second. I'm showing you part of the screen in order to get the best sound quality out of this thing. But overall is nice. We do have a nice middle screen there, so a cluster screen, which gives us things like pitch and roll, off-road status, and a number of things. So if you're taking your vehicle off-road, you've got quite a little bit of flexibility built directly into that middle screen, which is always a nice thing. Now, we can also change between songs, radio stations, and things like that using our voice directly on the steering wheel. Like I said, we've got a series of different options that we can go to and navigate through using that steering wheel as well. So tons of options. Now, as we kind of shift over, we are push button start inside of the Bronco. That's the same way across the entire Bronco lineup. and then along the top of the screen. So you might not be able to see it from your vantage point, but we do have a little power point there. So we've got two USB ports, so a USB and a USB-C, and there also is a little hook right in the middle there. So it's it's essentially an accessory adapter. Wow, that was oddly difficult to say, but it's an accessory adapter. So if you want to mount a GoPro and things like that for off-roading, you've got the flexibility to be able to do it. Now this is the Wildtrak version of the Bronco, which means that it's got the Sasquatch package in it built in, and it's the Advanced, which means that we've got our front and our rear locking differentials. We've also got our trail turn assist and a few other things. But if you want a breakdown of the Sasquatch package and why it's so amazing, check down below because I've done a comprehensive walkthrough on the Sasquatch package, but it's amazing from the beadlock wheels and all of the other stuff that you get. Like the trail turn assist I think is amazing because what that'll do is as you're going left, right on a trail, it's going to lock up that inner rearmost wheel. So it'll kind of like spin you like, not kind of Tokyo drift style so that you're kind of, well, I guess maybe like kind of drifting like a little bit, but it essentially helps you corner around things a little bit easier. We do have our tracking control, which we can turn on or off, and we've got our four-way blinkers. So quite a little bit of flexibility there. And then even the same way with the screen, like there is so much stuff that you can do with this screen, like it's kind of mind-boggling. But we've got our Sync4 system, and this is the 12-inch media screen. So that was something that Ford introduced in the 2021 F-150 first, and then they brought it into the Bronco as well. But this thing is amazing. This is the old system that you're going to find in the Bronco Sport. That Sync3 system is wired Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. This thing is wireless. It has more advanced controls for audio and things like that as well. But a great amount of flexibility. This thing does still have support for Android Auto and Apple CarPlay that are done wirelessly. So yeah, do we have factory navigation? Absolutely, but if you don't want to use factory navigation, you can use Google Maps, Apple Maps, Waze directly through this middle screen. It's an amazing system. We've got at least our AM, FM, Sirius XM. If you had a USB stick with MP3s, that would show up as an option. Bluetooth audio, things like that. So essentially, sky's the limit there. We've got our phone, oh, with one exception, YouTube. You can't unfortunately play any sort of videos directly through the screen natively, so you don't have the option of launching the YouTube app on the screen the same way you would in a Tesla. Unfortunately, not there as of yet. I'm hoping a hack comes at some point soon. I think that would be kind of nice, but it's not available here as of yet, unfortunately. But we can add in a series of different phones. Like I said, factory navigation, which is great, and the factory nav is super responsive, which is even better. I love it. Easily reset views as necessary, and with the factory navigation, we can also go full screen with it if we want. Tons of different settings that are available. So we've got options for connectivity. We've got a voice assistant, as I mentioned. We've got some options for our radio, and then we've got some more advanced settings on top of that. So we've got some sound settings. So this, if you want to kind of flip yourself around, would kind of be the ideal settings. So we've got treble, mid-range bass with our treble dropped down a little bit and our bass cranked a little bit. That's going to give us a really good sound inside of this thing. Like especially when you look at some of the packages that don't have the upgraded B&O sound system, that's where you're going in order to get the best sound out of this thing. Series of other options that are available there. We've got our sync navigation and a few other things. Features, we've got some great things like our adaptive cruise control. We've got pre-collision assist systems, blind spot systems, so a ton of options that are available. You can turn off a lot of these safety ones. Like if you don't like the idea of a pre-collision assist system where the vehicle brakes for you if it senses a potential collision, we can toggle that feature off, or we can toggle the whole system off if we want to. So quite a few options that are available there. We've got a built-in owner's manual, and then we've also got zone lighting on the outside, so we can light things up, light the vehicle up later on at night if you want to. So if you're relaxing on a trail, or if you kind of want to blast through and see exactly what's going on around you, you've got the flexibility to be able to do it. All right, and as we start to move down, so we are push-button start inside the vehicle, and that's the same way across the entire Bronco lineup. Moving over, we do have our volume rocker there. We've got our tuning rocker, and we can turn the audio on or off by just pressing this button along the very middle of the tuning rocker, or the volume rocker, I should say. Now, because this one does have the 360 camera, as you can see there, let me just move you back up a tiny little bit so you can see what's going on. So we press that button in order to get to the actual camera there. So you can see we've got a little hamburger button that gives us the full 360 view, a front partial view, or a front 180-degree view. So definitely useful if you're going trailing. You can see exactly what's going on all around you. If you'd like to go that route, camera button in order to get rid of it. And moving back down again, we've got our auto start stop button. So that's the one that's potentially going to kill power to the vehicle if we're stopped for an extended period of time. We've got our parking sensors, so we can easily toggle these things on or off as necessary. We can change between songs or radio stations that way. We've got a tuning rocker there if we want to use that. We can play and pause as necessary if we're listening to Sirius XM, our phones, whatever the case may be. down a tiny little bit more, we do have the option for dual zone climate control inside the vehicle. And one thing to note, so if we've got this dual button enabled, that means that dual zone's active. If you want to default it back to the driver's side, we just hit that button again, and it jumps us back to whatever the driver's side setting is. We've got some base settings there, so we want it going to our windshield face or feet, and that's something that comes up along the media screen. And because of the version of the vehicle that we're in here, let me just get the shifter out of the way for you. We do also have our heated steering wheel and then our heated front row seats. So these things are available as an option. Same thing with the heated steering wheel, just depending on the trim level of the vehicle that we're in. We've got our rear window defroster, and then we've got our fan control there as well. Now, as we start to move down, we do also have, here, let me move you down a teeny little bit there, and brighten you up a little bit so you can make it out, but we do have 2 USB ports, so a USB as well as a USB-C. And then, depending on the version of the vehicle you're in, if your phone supports wireless charging, we do have the option for a wireless charge pad down there. So it is nice that we've got that flexibility. This bad boy is charging up. You might not be able to see it from your vantage point there, but it is nice because the media screen, as you saw, does support wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. So we could be wirelessly charging while we're wirelessly connected. But like I said, the wireless charge pad is not standard on the Bronco. It's going to depend on the version of the vehicle you're in. We do have our grab handle along the side. We've got our Bronco or Ford lettering right along the top there as well, which is kind of nice. So we've got our designed and engineered by Ford, Dearborn, Michigan. So this is kind of a neat thing. So just kind of something a little bit of a nostalgic throwback to the original Bronco. We do have our American flag down there, which is kind of neat. We're in Canada. I wish they had a Canadian flag there. Here nor there. We do have a nice setup there. We've got our bucking Bronco along the actual shifter itself. And then we also do have our plus minus buttons along the left part of the shifter. So we can easily adjust what gear we're in if we want to. We've got our park reverse neutral drive and then our manual mode. So we can easily adjust gears by pressing the plus minus button there as we go. And as we start to move down a tiny little bit, we've got 2 individual cup holders there. And then we've got a series of different GOAT modes that are available. So as we kind of adjust this out, so we've got our normal mode. And then moving across the other way, we've got our Eco, Sport mode, Slippery, Mud Ruts, as well as our Sand mode, and then Baja mode. So quite a few different modes that are available, and the modes that you get are going to depend on the version of the vehicle that you're in. As you can see there, we also do have a series of other options here. So we've got our 2 high mode, we've got our 4 high, 4 low, and 4 auto. 4 auto mode is only going to be there depending on the version of the vehicle that you're in. So we can easily just kind of switch out to our 4 auto mode there if we'd like to. That's a very simple switch. 4 high mode, same idea. And then, so same idea, it's a very simple switch. To get into our 4 low mode though, we actually have to shift out into neutral. So once we're in neutral, we will notice that that 4 low setting, it starts to change out. And it takes a second there, and it is now active. So we're in 4 low, and same idea. So if we're in park or any other gear other than neutral, we can't change this out. We actually, in order to change it into anything, we do have to be in our 4 low mode, or neutral mode, I should say, in order to change out of 4 low and a few other settings. We can see there, we're now in our 4 low, and it's that simple, changing out these as necessary. But if you want a little bit more of an understanding of how these individual modes work, check down below for that walkthrough and how those things work. Button along the very middle there is also our trail control. So we've got a few different options for trail 1 pedal driving, which is only available in our 4 high or 4 low mode. So 4 low mode, I'll just give you a little bit of a nutshell. That one's typically going to be used if you're doing some more serious off-roading. So rugged terrain, you're pulling a boat out of water, things like that. So we do have quite a few different options available, and then our 4 auto mode means the vehicle is going to adjust as necessary, shifting up power on the fly as it's needed. Now, one thing you can kind of just see from your vantage point there, we do also have our window control buttons. Let's see if I move this out of the way. I think this is just not going to work here. Hold on. Let me extend you out a tiny little bit and drop you down a little bit more. There we go. All right, so you might just be able to make these bad boys out now. So we've got our window control buttons, and we've also got the control for our side view mirrors. So it's kind of neat how we've got the flexibility to do it. So we can kind of see a little bit of a light up there for our left versus right side, and then we can adjust the mirrors out as necessary. So it's very straightforward to do it. And then our windows, we're auto for all 4 windows inside of this version of the Bronco. And then we can also turn our window control on or off as necessary. We've got an armrest, which is lockable. We've got a tiny little removable tray inside of this thing. And then we've also got a 12-volt power point in the back there. So we easily plug some things in all over the place inside of this thing, like power points galore, which is amazing. Now moving up overhead, we do have an auto-dimming rear view mirror. Again, I say it all the time, it's going to depend on the trim level of the vehicle that you're in. This thing also does have some cabin control lights, and we've got some auxiliary switches. So they're pre-wired in. which is definitely a nice thing. So if you need to wire some things in, so accessory lights, whatever the case may be, our aux switches are already going to be built in because of the packages that we've got inside of this vehicle. You could also do something aftermarket. You can get that installed aftermarket if you want to instead. You could always do an install yourself for those switches. We do have our home link system because of the model that we're in. So if you've got a garage door opener at home, you can program that bad boy in. We've got our vanity mirror that also has some lights in there, a business card holder along the top, and then this thing extends out. So realistically, like I'm 6 feet tall. So with me being 6 feet tall, I would probably have this thing kind of like this. That's pretty comfortable. So with me sitting the way I normally would, it's going to block out all the sun that's potentially hitting your eyes. Like there's a few extra inches of space, and people will say those few extra inches do matter, but I mean, it wasn't blocking my face, so here nor there. But overall, I am impressed. I do love the seat. Like the comfort of this thing is so nice. We do have our two-way lumbar support. And one of the cool things with the headrest, we can go up and down with it, but listen. So nice. So we do have a 4-way adjustable headrest, which is amazing. So if you're a little bit shorter, you need a little bit more neck support, whatever the case may be, we do have the flexibility to adjust that out as necessary. But overall, this thing is nice. So as I mentioned, this thing does have the hard top, which means that to take it off is pretty straightforward. We do have just a series of different levers there. So we're just going to kind of go left, right with it, whatever the case may be, in order to take these things out. Once that's out, we do have our main latch there. Oh, that's tight. It's tight. It's never been taken off before, obviously. But we do have a series of different latches that are available there, so we can take off this piece individually, the passenger piece individually, or the rear part of the roof individually. So we can kind of adjust this thing out as necessary and as we'd like to. Like I mentioned, the doors themselves, all 4 of these things are also fully removable. A little bit of a pain to get them off, but not impossible all at the same time. There are some other YouTubers that have done some awesome work showing how to take these things off, so I'll link to those ones down below. The second row of the Bronco is actually fairly spacious when we look at the full 4-door. So you do have the option for strictly the 2-door. You'd lose quite a little bit of space back here. So if you need some room for 5 people, you definitely want to look at the full 4-door as an option. But this thing is fairly nice. Like overall headspace, I've got about 3 inches or so of headspace here, which is kind of a nice thing. But this one does have the hard liner, which is always nice. We do have the option, obviously, for the soft as well, which is going to be the more popular one you're going to find on the roads right now, just because of availability. But this thing, like I said, is fairly nice. We've got a nice look along the door itself, handles there, which match what's going on with the front row. We've got a few things, so a few pockets behind the driver passenger seat. We do have our window buttons, so we can control them from the back, which is definitely a nice thing. And we've got a series of different power points. So we've got 2 USB, so a USB, USB-C, as well as a regular wall outlet. So this specific one is a 400 watt, so we can plug in quite a few things in the back of this thing if we need to power some stuff up. But overall, styling, comfort-wise, this is actually kind of nice. Like, it's got a good amount of bounce to it. We do also have a few cup holders back here. So along the door itself, we do have a few, like some cargo nets, so we can store bottles and things like that, or physical cups, just right in the backrest there, which is definitely a nice thing. Now this thing is 60-40 split, so 60 driver, 40 passenger. We can fold down the seats very easily if we need to create some space one way or the other. But overall, like I said, styling wise, this is fairly nice. I do like the headliner here instead. So we've got our sound deadening headliner and we've got the hard roof. So I honestly would prefer the hard roof myself, but if you just wanted a Bronco, soft roof is gonna get you built quicker right now just because of production issues and things like that. But just behind us, we do also have a little light that we can control there. But overall styling inside of this thing is fairly nice. Filling up fuel inside of the Bronco is straightforward. So just along our driver's side, capless system, fill up using your fuel hose. Oh, interesting. I think I may have noticed this a tiny little bit, but it's kind of neat seeing it. So just right above the fuel cap there, we do have a series of that old school style Bronco, which is kind of nice, a little nostalgic. Minimum manufacturer's recommendation for the fuel quality is just your regular 87 gas, so 87 fuel. Do you need to use a higher premium fuel? Absolutely not. But there's always a caveat to that. So the horsepower and torque specs that we were looking at underneath the hood are achieved using a premium fuel. So do you need to use one? No. But if you want the best performance out of the vehicle, you absolutely want to use a higher premium fuel instead. And that's especially true if you're taking your vehicle off-road or putting it under heavy load because you're towing with it. So anytime you put your vehicle under heavier stress, always a good idea to give it a better quality fuel. So like that 91 or 93 octane is ideal for the best performance out of this thing, but it's definitely not necessary. And towards the back end of the Bronco, we've got this full-size spare tire that's mounted to the back. We do also have our backup camera that's hidden right in between the wheel here, which is kind of a neat thing. But this specific one has the front sensing system, the reverse sensing system, and that full 360 camera system, which means that we've got our full 360 view, which is absolutely amazing. We do have a rear tow hook, so we've got 2 in the front, 1 in the back, so we can get pulled or pull people out as necessary in case they get stuck as we go off-roading. We've got our LED tails there, and then this thing also has a few interesting components. So, we pull this door open, which is great, but we also do have separate glass. So we can separate this thing out as necessary, we can load things up. Technically, you shouldn't have the glass open by itself, but you need to transport lumber for a second. You do have the flexibility to adjust this thing out as necessary, but let's flip around so you can take a peek at the cargo dimensions. So cargo dimensions for the vehicle are going to be showing up. So we do have a decent amount of width, depth, and height to this thing, which is kind of a nice thing, but we can also fold down both of the seats if we want to. So just along the very top, we do have a little release button there for the seat, and down she goes. So as you can see there, locked down into place, but we do have even more depth when we have that second row folded down. And then one thing you can probably tell, we do have a little bit of a lip here, but it's not completely flat. But at the same time, we do at least have that 60-40 split. You could create a little box and things like that if you needed a flatter fold instead, but overall styling is nice inside of this thing. Now you might just be able to make it out, but in behind the second row seats, we do also have our tethers. So we've got our latch system, so anchors, tethers, whatever the case may be. So front facing, rear facing child seats, not gonna have an issue setting them up inside of this thing. Looking along the right side of the cargo area, we do have a 12-volt power point back there. And there also is another light that does have a Bronco right in the middle of it, which is kind of a neat thing. On top of that, we also do have 4 individual tie downs, so 4 individual hooks there. So if we need to tie some things down, we could do that. And we do have a little removable part here. Well, it's not technically removable. We can lift it up, but underneath that, we've got a little storage area there with a little plug. And then we've got our jack as well as our white spigot. So if we ever need to fill up using a jerry can, this is where we're going to make it happen. But overall, I am impressed with what Ford's done with this thing. I love the look, love the layout. The off-road functionality is definitely there. You've probably seen a ton of videos online showing off the possibilities and the potential of this truck so far. But that was a quick look at the 2022 Bronco, specifically the Wildtrak. What did you think? I think this thing looks kind of neat. There's so many different options that are available. It's nice, like especially if you're looking for something bigger than the Bronco Sport, you don't necessarily want to jump into the Jeep world. The Bronco is a good option if you're going to be an off-roader. It's funny, there was another YouTube channel where the guy was talking about the likelihood, well, most people are using the Bronco 4, not necessarily its intended use. It's funny, we see trucks all over the place right now as well. This thing is going to be just mostly an on-road vehicle for a lot of people, unfortunately, but it's got great off-road capabilities, especially with our front rear stability bar disconnect, the trail turn assist, and so many things. Like there is so much possibility inside of this truck. So if you've got one, take advantage of it. Like the Bronco is super capable. Ford's done a great job with it. But especially the Bronco with the Sasquatch package. This thing is like literally meant for off-roading. Like that's why you're looking at the Wildtrak model, because you want to take it off-road. But if you guys have any questions though, drop down in the comment section below and let me know. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your social networks. And until I see you next time, take care.